The lights were still hot when the crew pulled her out of the fire. Martha Mansfield was 24, the leading lady of a Fox Civil War picture, and a tossed match had turned her hoop skirt into a torch. She died the next day. The studio finished the film and released it anyway. That was the arrangement in Hollywood's golden age. A body was a production expense, and the picture shipped on schedule. Stunt flyers burned in crashes they were paid to fake. A star collapsed on a soundstage and came back as 3 doubles. These are 12 deaths the studios called accidents and then buried in the cutting room. Ormer Locklear, he was the most famous flyer in America. The wing walker Fox had turned into an action star after the Great Air Robbery. On the night of August 2, 1920, Locklear had one shot left on the Skywayman, a spinning dive toward the ground, lit by arc lights that were supposed to go dark on his cue. They stayed on. Blinded at the bottom of the dive, he flew straight into the ground with his co-pilot, Milton Skeets Elliott. The plane exploded on impact. Both men died instantly, in front of the crew and the running cameras. Fox did not bury this one. It sold it. With the picture otherwise complete, the studio rushed it into release 5 weeks later, advertising every inch of film, showing Locklear's spectacular last flight. Audiences bought tickets to watch a man die. Locklear was 28. The film itself is lost now. The crash outlived the movie. Martha Mansfield, Thanksgiving Day, 1923. Mansfield was 24 and starring in Fox's The Warrens of Virginia, shooting in Brackenridge Park in San Antonio. The company had been pushed hard to make up days lost to weather. She had just finished her scenes and settled into a car, still in a Civil War hoop skirt built from ruffles and light gauze. A lit match was tossed nearby. The dress went up like paper. Her leading man, Wilfred Lytell, threw his heavy overcoat over her head, which saved her face and neck. Her chauffeur burned his hands, tearing the burning fabric off her body. She died the following day of those burns. There were no fire standards on a 1923 set. Fox's answer was arithmetic. Finish the picture and ship it. The Warrens of Virginia was released in 1924 with a dead woman in it. The New York Times printed the cause without euphemism: burns from a smoker's match. One death can be called bad luck. The next case was a body count. Kenneth Hawks, January 2, 1930. Fox had 2 Stinson Detroiters in the air over Santa Monica Bay as camera platforms, filming a parachute jump for Such Men Are Dangerous. Director Kenneth Hawks, 31, married to Mary Astor, brother of Howard Hawks, was in one of them. Witnesses on the beach saw the wingtips touch. The planes locked together, caught fire, and fell into the ocean. 10 men died. Hawks, cinematographer Conrad Wells, assistant director Max Gold, 2 more cameramen, 2 property men, and both pilots. 3 bodies were thrown clear into the sea. Only 5 of the 10 were ever recovered. Howard Hawks had intended to board that plane and backed out at the last moment. Probable cause was listed as sun glare. The coroner's inquiry attached blame to no person and no decision. Because the crash came in the final days of shooting, Fox completed the picture and released it on schedule. 10 dead men and no delay. Varick Frissell had already finished his Newfoundland sealing picture when he decided it needed more ice. On March 9, 1931, he sailed from St. John's aboard the sealing ship SS Viking with a small crew and his cameras. Ships like that carried dynamite to blast through ice jams. On March 15, trapped near the Horse Islands, the powder went off and blew the stern of the vessel apart. 27 men died, including Frissell, his cinematographer Alexander Penrod, and nearly the entire film unit. Frissell's body was never found. His backers did what the industry always did. They finished the picture, renamed it the Viking after the ship that killed the crew, and released it that summer in Toronto, New York, London, and Paris, with the disaster working as the advertising. 27 dead men became a selling point for a 70-minute movie about seal hunting. Jack Budlong, Warner Bros., was shooting Custer's last charge for They Died with Their Boots On, Errol Flynn at the head of the 7th Cavalry. Jack Budlong was a wealthy socialite-turned-actor who rode well and wanted to look authentic doing it, so he refused a wooden prop and carried a real saber into the charge. An explosive charge detonated near him and blew him off his horse. He came down on his own blade and impaled himself. He was not the only casualty of that production. Another man was thrown from a horse and broke his neck. A third died of a heart attack. In September 1941, Flynn himself collapsed from exhaustion. Warner Bros. Finished the charge, released the film that November, and sold it as a rousing cavalry epic. 3 men died making it, and the campaign named none of them. The title referred to the 7th Cavalry. It should have covered the crew. Robert Walker. To audiences, he was Bruno Antony, the smiling killer from Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, released just 2 months before he died. Robert Walker was 32, in psychiatric treatment, drinking heavily, and making himself available for retakes on Leo McCarey's My Son John. On the night of August 28, 1951, his housekeeper found him badly agitated and could not calm him. His psychiatrist arrived and administered sodium amytal, a sedative Walker had been given before. He had alcohol in his system. He stopped breathing. Resuscitation failed. The New York Times ran it flatly. Actor Walker dies after drug dosage. Then Paramount solved its problem. My Son John was completed with a double shot from behind, rewrites that wrote him out, and outtake footage of Walker lifted from Strangers on a Train, with his final speech played from a tape recorder at an empty podium. His last performance is a splice job assembled around a dead man. Tyrone Power was Fox's great swashbuckler, and at 44 he was in Madrid starring in and co-producing Solomon and Sheba. On November 15, 1958, 2 months into the shoot, he was working a duel scene with his friend George Sanders, in armor, in the heat, take after take. He collapsed on the set with a massive heart attack. He was dead before the day was out. The production did not stop. Producer Edward Small recast the lead with Yul Brynner, who had turned the part down once already, and reshot Power's scenes. But restaging the big battle and crowd material would have cost too much, so Power stayed in the finished picture, alive in the long shots. Solomon and Sheba opened at Christmas 1959 with a dead man riding in the wide shots and a living man's face cut in for the close-ups, and no one told the audience where one ended and the other began. Jean Harlow, May 20th, 1937. MGM was 90% finished with Saratoga. Jean Harlow, 26 years old, the biggest blonde in the world, was playing a scene with Walter Pidgeon when she collapsed on the soundstage. Director Jack Conway told her to have lunch and lie down in her dressing room. She went home instead. Days passed before she reached a hospital, and by then it was kidney failure, uremic poisoning, her own blood turning toxic. She slipped into a coma on June 6 and died on June 7. The old story that her mother's religion blocked her treatment is disputed. She was hospitalized, and in 1937 there was no dialysis that could have saved her. What is not disputed is what MGM did next. The studio weighed replacing her with Jean Arthur or Virginia Bruce, then finished the film with 3 doubles, Mary D. shot from behind, Geraldine Dvorak in the long shots, Paula Winslow dubbing her voice. Saratoga became the highest-grossing film of 1937. Clark Gable, he was the king. Rhett Butler, MGM's most valuable man for a quarter of a century. In the fall of 1960, Gable was 59 and shooting The Misfits in the Nevada desert in heat reported above 100 degrees. He refused to stunt double. He roped Mustangs himself, took the drags and the falls himself, and by accounts of the production was using amphetamines to keep his weight down for the part. The shoot ran long and late, with days burned waiting on Marilyn Monroe. Filming ended in the first days of November. Within roughly a day, he suffered a severe coronary thrombosis. He was hospitalized on November 6 and died on November 16. His widow, Kay, blamed the strain and the waiting. This one did not happen on the stage floor. It was a death the schedule bought, and the studio sold it as his final performance. 23 years earlier, Gable had been Harlow's leading man on Saratoga, standing on the picture MGM completed with doubles after she went down. The machine that filmed around her filmed around him too. The uncredited stuntman of the charge of the Light Brigade Warner Bros. Gave Errol Flynn his most famous charge in 1936. To get it, 2nd Unit Director B. Reeves Eason wired the battlefield with running W tripwires that yanked galloping horses off their feet at speed. 125 horses were tripped for the sequence. 25 were killed outright or destroyed afterward. A stuntman died in that charge. Accounts of how still differ. Some say he broke his neck in the fall, that he came down on a broken sword blade, left standing in the dirt. What is documented is what came next. The ASPCA investigated the horses. On June 29, 1936, 3 Warner employees pled guilty to animal cruelty over the tripwires, paid $15 each, and took suspended 10-day sentences. Nobody was charged over the man. Congress eventually acted for the animals. Warner Bros. Never re-released the film. The horses got a number in the record. He didn't even get a name. 12 deaths, 1 arrangement. Every time a body hit the ground on a Golden Age set, the studio's first question was never what happened. It was whether the picture could still ship. It always could. There were doubles, long shots, outtakes from other films, and press agents who could make a coroner's report sound like bad weather. The horses got a court date. The men got a paragraph. Martha Mansfield's skirt burned in 1923, and the film came out anyway. Hollywood wanted this forgotten. We remembered. Subscribe for more buried truth from the Golden Age.